Hi everyone, welcome to episode 145. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. Welcome to Woolen Spinning. Welcome to this place. Welcome to all of the Patreon subscribers who are in the chat right now. I'm actually going to move things around a little bit so that I can see all of your beautiful chatter and what you guys are talking about. I have moved the setup a little bit for today because it just sort of seems to work a little bit better. So I hope that that is okay. How are you guys? How's life? What's happening? Thank you for letting me delay the beginning of the show today. It was just a little bit too tight getting Mike off the computer and getting me onto the desktop. It was just sort of a little bit too much. So I might actually, while all of this is going on and while we're at home and just while everything's happening, I might actually move the start time of the stream to 11:15. Just to give myself that little bit of a buffer, because I am finding that it's a little bit tight to get the stream up and running for 11 a.m. So we'll just sort of play that by ear and see how that goes. So thank you so much to everybody who is here. Welcome to anybody who is new. I haven't actually looked in the chat to see who is around. I'm just posting stuff in the Slack channel, so thank you so much for being patient. We have a big show today. I don't know if anybody looked forward at the show notes, but there is a lot going on today. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about, as you can see here by my pile of fiber, my yarns, my swatches, all my stuff, and you can see I've got my finished object in the background to talk to you about. So I hope that you are as excited as I am. Thank you so much for your patience around the beginning of the show. All right. It's really good to see everybody. Oh, okay. So 11:15 would actually work for people. That would be great. Hi, Alyssa. Hi, Pia. Hi, Wendy. Okay, same for you too then, Wendy. Glenda. Okay, so everybody wants it 11:15, so that's perfect. So we'll move it forward to 11:15. We'll make that happen for next week, because it is a little bit less tight for me and it just gives me a little bit of wiggle room. It also means that after virtual spin group, I can eat and then get everything organized while Mike's getting off of the computer. So that actually works really well. How is everybody? How is life? How is social distancing? How is being at home? I know everybody is in their kind of world, at home. There's been all these jokes and memes on Instagram that as introverts, we have trained for this. I appreciate, the jokes, but I also appreciate that it's very challenging for a lot of people. So I hope that you're hanging in there, and I hope that you guys are doing well. In today's show, we will be talking about the giveaway that is open to all Ravelry members, Ravelry group members. So if you're not a member of the Ravelry group, please hop on over and enter in the for this month, April episode thread. So we are James and I have been carting up a storm, and I left all of the bats downstairs because it's just too much to carry upstairs. But I do have some of the yarns that I've been making from those bats right here ready to show you today. And one of the things that we have been carting up has been this Frisian fleece that him and I have been working on and trying to do. So these are Canadian dairy sheep, and they were bred sort of in Canada for dairy. This is a 2-ply that I spun that I'm going to talk about later in the show. But James and I thought it would be really fun because it's carding up absolutely beautifully. It's my new favorite yarn. We are going to send out one of the bats that we make. So that'll be for April. So we're going to send out one of the bats. They're big and fluffy and they're just amazing. I'll show one on the next show. So if you could pop into the Ravelry group, and I will start a new episode thread for today. it'll be the April episode thread. If you could pop in there and tell us what you love most about the downy wools and the down-like wools. So tell us what you like the best about the down and the down-like wools. As you guys know, I absolutely love the downs, and they're one of my favorite fibers to spin. So yes, Pia, that is a really good point. Self-isolation is hard for introverts too because you can't get away from your extroverted family. That is so true. I am so thankful that my family is introverted because everybody needs their quiet time and everybody needs that opportunity to unwind and have those quiet moments. So I am very thankful for that. All right, so I've got lots of stuff to chatter at you guys about. I wanted to mention about the virtual spin group. I think there's one spot left. Anyways, we meet on Wednesday mornings before the live stream and before the podcast. We would love to have you along for the ride. It's just an awesome group. We were talking this morning about sampling and wraps per inch to spin to for sampling a sweater and doing first sweater spins and yarn substitution. And I would welcome anybody who would like to join in on that. And that is to learn more, you just have to go to patreon.com/raw4pearls. It's just a really, really nice, fun group of people. For March, I will send out another 4-ounce sort of 100-gram pin drafted roving bundle of Shetland. It's actually downstairs. And you guys were answering what your favorite yarn is that you've ever spun. And we've been working our way through the February episode thread that was your favorite item you've ever made. But I did draw a giveaway winner for March, and it is MP Tang, which is Mary. Congratulations. Post number 6. So Mary, if you could get in touch with me with your mailing address, that would be wonderful. And your Ravelry handle is MP Tang. So congratulations. Just so that you know, shipping will be delayed for the foreseeable future. So I will get everything ready and I will have your package ready to go. I just don't have access to my mom's printer at this time. So as soon as I can get access to her printer, I will pop that stuff in the mail for you. And to Kelly, I will bring the Shetland with me for you from February to Fibers West at the beginning of July. Let's talk about, let me run the intro credits and then we will get into the rest of the show, and I will share with you the February entry. So we're just working our way through that thread of what people shared for their most worn favorite items. So I'll share that with you after we run through the introduction. Okay, so let's share Marley's post. This was her finished object that she wears the most. So her bonbon shawl is by far her most worn project. She loves the drape and it's so warm. It's beautiful. Gorgeous. Really, really beautifully done. So thank you for sharing that, Marley. Really, really great. Oh yeah, homeschooling and teaching online. I bet you guys are missing your students, the teachers out there. And Pernell says, we are all fine, but I overdid knitting and can't knit for the moment, which is not the best time. Oh, that's too bad, Pernell. That's just like really bad timing. We have a couple of events going on in the Ravelry group that I want to share with you guys. We have Becca, who is at Bethy40, and she's actually in the chat right now. Rebecca Roy. I wasn't sure if your username on YouTube was your full name, Rebecca. So Rebecca is how she spells her name, Rebecca. And she goes by Becca in the Ravelry group and on the Slack channel. And many of you know who she is. She's one of our very active member. She helps me with welcoming people in the Slack channel. She's actually on Woolen Spinning Radio this month, and I haven't recorded the, sorry, not recorded. It's been recorded. I haven't edited the episode yet. That's on my list for later to do today. So Woolen Spinning Radio will be a little bit delayed this month. But she initiated in the Slack channel under the hashtag books channel. So if you're not a part of that, you can add that to your channels that you're active in on Slack if you are part of the Slack channel. She suggested that we delve into a Jane Austen book club. So the one that we're going to start with is Sense and Sensibility, and she will be hosting some Zoom meetings as we work our way through the book. So we're just doing the first couple of chapters right now and organizing sort of a meetup and when we're going to hop on Zoom together. But if you're interested in that, and that is something that kind of puts some fuel in your fire, please think about doing that and hopping on there with us. Our Made with Love Along is a community-wide call to everybody in our community to participate in our Crafty Jacks Along. Our cast-on date is today, and this knit along will run until the end of July. And we're asking that to be entered in the finished objects thread, which I haven't actually made in the Ravelry group yet, but I will. That you work with some of Katrina's fibers and or yarns or whatever it is that you have. You can buy new. You can work from stashed fiber, it doesn't matter. There are different points that you can accrue to sort of earn more entries. So if you buy something new, that earns you an extra point. And if you work with one of Kelly G Knits patterns, that earns you an extra point. Anyways, we're also celebrating other local makers and whatnot in your own community. So this is a chance for us as a community to honor Katrina in the finished objects thread, but in the participation thread, you can also please say what you're working on and who the local fiber artist is, so that we can honor everybody. And again, Rebecca, who is Rebby J, and Becca, Bethy 40, are sort of heading this up and taking the reins on this. So I am actually making Anchor's cardigan. This is a pattern by Petite Knits, and I'll show you what I've made so far, because I have been working on it every night. So I cast it on ahead of everybody else, and I've been working on it every night, just like for a few rows, because I feel like otherwise I'm not going to get it done. And this is actually, I never show my project bags, but this is in my Frog Peak Creations bag. It's little mini buses. And this project bag by my friend Monique, who lives in the Okanagan. So this is Katrina's Be Fabulicious. It's her 100% BFL fingering. It's just a gorgeous yarn, loosely spun, just really, really lovely. Nice halo to the BFL. This is commercial yarn, and this was a one-of-a-kind colorway. It was a oak, and there was 2 skeins of it left. I think she had 4 initially, and I just fell in love with it, and I saw it sitting there, and I grabbed it. So this is my Anchor's cardigan. It's a 1x1 rib, and you do your yoke increases, and I just finished my last set of yoke increases here. Knit from the top down, typical cast on, and then you do your sort of initial ribbing, increase your needle size, because this is sort of like your collar, and then you continue down into the yoke. So I'm just into the last set of ribbing, and then I'll finish off. I think the pattern has like raglan increases before you separate for the sleeves. So knit on 3mm needles, so quite fine, and it'll sit sort of like that. I can't stretch it out because it'll pop off my needles. But really, really, I'm really enjoying the simplicity of this. It's just going along really, really quickly. And like I said, I'm just working on it a little bit every day just to keep up, because I feel like otherwise I will not get it done. I have so many works in progress right now. It's actually a little bit comical. You know how sometimes you just go through those phases where you've got all the things going? And actually, I was so relieved to get my shift cowl done, which I talked about last show, and the Simple Something done, which is behind me, which we'll talk about today, because it just got 2 projects blocked, washed, blocked, ends woven in and off my needles and kind of out of my head, which I know sounds kind of weird, but I've got quite a few samples that I'm working on right now. This one, this one, and then another one that's over here that I'll talk about in just a sec, that are all for the yarn substitution content that's coming up in later in the spring and into the summer. And you know how you just sort of, you've got these projects going and you're really wanting to see some progress on them, but your attention is sort of being pulled to other projects that are necessitating your energy and your thoughts. So to sort of have this to zone out with every evening in bed, because this is what I've been working on, the Anchors cardigans, what I've been working on as my last thing before I turn out the light. And I've been journaling a lot recently and writing a lot. I think I've mentioned that in the podcast. And so just having that like opportunity to just knit those 2 or 3 rows and completely zone out, because it's such simple knitting. And I don't have to look at my hands, and I could just sort of like come down off the day. It's been really therapeutic, really, really good. So, that actually sways me into the upcoming yarn substitution content. So there was a trailer that I actually published back in January, and I will link it in the live chat now because I am on the desktop and I can, and you guys can watch that. This introduces this content. It's a series. It's going to run over 4 months. This originally was going to be content for the School of Sweet Georgia, and because of some changes that Felicia and I have made around that content and what we want it to look like and what we're going to be working on over the next few years, I sort of shifted it into content for here. And so it's going to run in the How I Spin vlog, which is part of the co-executive producer tier on Ravelry, and also part of the attentive spinner tier on Ravelry. So if you would like to have just the vlog, that's part of the anything from the co-executive producer up. And if you would like to also have a PDF download with the transcript of the video, as well as some photos, kind of like what the How I Spin PDF used to be like, that will be coming with the attentive spinner tier. So if that speaks to you, then have a look at Patreon for that stuff. And that will run over 4 months. And we will start actually the first month with calculating all of your yarn statistics, figuring out sort of, how to get started, what yarn substitution is. There will be 2 vlogs that month, an introduction vlog and also the first part of the content. So it will come out in 3 parts, and then that'll be May, and then June will be kind of the next part, and then July will be the next part, the 3rd part, and then August will be a summary of everything with a downloadable PDF sort of summarizing everything, almost kind of like course materials sort of for you guys to refer back to in the future. So I hope that is helpful. That's true, Suzanne. We still call them podcasts even though no one uses an iPod anymore. That's so true. Okay, we're going to talk about the simple something. And I've got my yarns here. So I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And then we can sort of get into my simple something. And I've got some modeled photos to show you. The photos aren't great of me. I was feeling a little bit awkward in front of the camera, but it does give you an idea of what the sweater looks like on me, which I know you guys always really enjoy. So I had to share, I saved them. I know I'm such a nerd. I had to share with you guys. These are all of the ends that I cut out of the sweater as I wove them in. So I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I'm actually going to put them in a Ziploc bag, I think. And I thought what I could do is sort of let the kids play with them. I can't really make like a pom-pom because they're already cut, but this was all of the ends off of the sweater, inside and out, because the sweater is supposed to be reversible. So this is the Simple Something by Anka's Trick, and I think what I'll do is I'll actually show you guys a photo of it on her. So this is my Make 9 for 2020, and I have 2 Make 9 projects. So I have my first part of my Make 9, which has some projects that are sewn. So I'll link it in the show note, in the live chat. So this is my part 1 make 9, and then this is my part 2 make 9, and these are all of the hand spun / hand knit items that I want to make. So my part 1 had 3 patterns that I would like to sew for this year, and then and a couple of shawls, a couple of a cowl, some accessories. And then this one is like my sweaters. Like this is like, I have the actual physical yarn for all of these sweaters, and these may or may not get done this year. But these 9 projects are going to get done for sure, for sure. So the Simple Something is the one on this side, right where the Gotland is sitting, right here. This is the Simple Something. So it's a pullover, it's a raglan, it had short row shaping at the back neck. It's by Anchor Trick. I will link her in the show notes if I can, or maybe somebody else can. Oh, also at the very top above the Simple Something, that is a photo of the Anchors cardigan, the one that I was just talking about by Petite Knits, all one word. I love her aesthetic. I love her patterns. I really like her kind of look, if you will. So the Simple Something is, here it is. Here we go. Here's a link. So the Simple Something, in the pattern photos, she's actually wearing it on the reverse stockinette side. And in the pattern itself, she leaves all of these ends hanging out on the wrong side, which is the stockinette side, and she doesn't cut them out, she leaves them. And I thought about doing that, but I know that if I did that, I would just never turn it, like I would never reverse it. Like it's just not my aesthetic, if you will. So I did weave in all of the ends, and I did cut all of this off. So I thought I would put them in a Ziploc bag, and I actually thought I could just let the kids play with it, because they can glue this stuff. They can tape it into their journals that they've been working on for a while they've been off. It's just, you know, all this color, and it's all, I mean, look at, it's like just so beautiful. So anyways, I kept them. So there was a lot of ends. There's a lot of ends. So these were the yarns. So these were my handspun yarns. These are all the Sweet Georgia colorways. So for those who are just tuning in to the show for the very first time, the original plan for these yarns was to spin each of these, and I was going to do a woven project, and it was going to be kind of like a spin to weave color workshop on Sweet Georgia, on the School of Sweet Georgia. And Felicia and I had met and talked about it, and I just really wasn't feeling it. And I love these yarns for knitting. Like as I was spinning them, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, like these would be amazing as knitting yarns. So this one is superwash Targhee, and you can see how the dyes take on the Targhee. I mean, it's just beautiful, right? And this is a lot of like what we would normally see in our hand painted braids, is this intensity of color. When we look at like merino or Polworth or BFL or Targhee, which is this superwash Targhee, you know, this sort of bright color, lots of richness. It's just really, really pretty. And then this one was the alpaca merino silk, and you can see how much more pastel the acid dyes take to the fiber. It's very, very soft and muted pastel. Again, 2-ply. And then the third fiber was this Gotland, and I just loved spinning this. I pre-drafted it. I stripped it down, not too much so that it started to fall apart, because if you strip Gotland too much, it'll just kind of drift apart on you. With that beautiful long wool, it just kind of turns into a bit of a cloud. But this, you know, again, 2-ply, spun it on a distaff to keep it organized. This is one of my ends. And yeah, I just love this yarn so much. It's very soft, which is really lovely for Gotland. I wish I could send you guys like a little sample of it, and you guys could put it against your cheeks. So those were the 3 yarns that I spun, and they all had varying yardage. and varying amounts that I ended up with. So the Gotland, I ended up with 344 yards. These were all a total of 125 grams of fiber. So this was 344 yards, and the grist ended up being 1,250 yards per pound. And these all spun to a sport weight, but they all knit to a different thickness. And we were actually talking about that this morning in the virtual spin. So you can spin to the same wraps per inch. So each of these were spun to sort of roughly 14 wraps per inch. So a light sport heavy fingering, and yet they knit up differently. Like the Targhee was, because it's a bouncy springy fiber, it fills in all of the spaces in the knit swatch. So this is a down wool that fills in all of the spaces. So even though it's down, not a fine wool, it fills in all the spaces and is spun to a wraps per inch of 11. But this is my Gotland Romney fleece, also spun to a wraps per inch of 11. But look at the wiry nature of it, and you can see the gaps and the holes between the fibers, even though these are knit on the same size needles. So that's sort of what happened with these. The Targhee filled in all the spaces and was a little bit thicker when it was being held double, because this sweater is knit with the yarns held double. Whereas this one stayed a little bit more, it didn't fill in the spaces. It's much more drapey because the alpaca and the silk, much more fine. But holding the yarns double gave it a little bit more structure than it would have had if I had left it single, which is why I ripped out the Comfort Fade and went to knitting something more like this. And then the Gotland ended up kind of actually knitting like somewhere in between these two. It sort of ended up being, it's a little bit wiry, but it was a little bit more able to fill in those spaces between the stitches and not appear like so airy because of the loft. So they all knit very differently and had their own characteristics, and ultimately worked really well together as to create a finished object that I'm just really, really super happy with. So I'm going to turn off my webcam for just a sec, and I'm going to shift over. Yeah, the blue pops in the Gotland were just incredible. And it's really interesting because I have to look at how this is moving on the camera. So I'm going to pop this down just a little bit. Thank you for your patience while I kind of move cameras a little bit. So it was really interesting because, because the Gotland at one point, I ended up with this kind of area of the yarn. I don't know if I have it. Maybe this is it here. So what I did was, as I was finishing the sweater, before I went to do the sleeves, I actually took the time to wind off 10 yards on my Nitty Naughty, my little sampler Nitty Naughty. I actually took the time to wind off 10 yards of each yarn as little samples, and the tags that are on here, I'm going to save them and put them on here actually, because I have the sorry, I've got bright light in my eye and it's like right in my face. It's good to give me depth and to have some backlighting, but I also don't want it in my eyes. So anyways, so I've got my knitted swatches for this project because of course I was designing fabric for the weave along and the knit along and everything, and I wanted to share the samples with Felicia to say, like, I really think that we should knit something with this yarn. And then of course we completely pivoted. But I've got my bag here of all of my samples that I've been spinning recently. It's just insane. And actually I don't have the, oh yeah, they're here. Sorry guys, just bear with me here. So these were all of the sample cards. So I wanted to keep all of this together and keep all of these samples. So I've got the samples, and then I've got the knitted swatches of each of them. And then I have these. So these are my cards that are the washed, which is in the middle, the singles on the outside closest to my face, and then the unwashed 2-ply yarns that are on the other side over by my Simple Something. So these sort of 9 items, the skeins, the swatches, and these cards will sort of make samples for teaching in the future, around sort of, you know, approaching some of this stuff and how to sort of go through this process of combining of yarn substitution and working with these commercial patterns that are out there. So really cool opportunity to sort of, you know, go through that process and actually document it. Like I've done it so many times, but to actually go through it and, like, you know, incrementally make sure that I'm actually saving the samples, that I'm actually you know, being really super intentional about it. Because the other thing is, like, when I was knitting with the Gotland, I ended up with this one section where there was just this huge amount of blue. And it just went on and on and on and on. And I ended up with a bunch of it in the hem, which you can't see. But what was so interesting, just because it's blended with the alpaca merino, but what is so interesting about that is that the colors actually sort of ended up, that blue ended up giving the merino alpaca a lot of depth and texture, because I was a bit worried about the solid nature of it, but it actually worked out really, really well. So let me just put this stuff away and get it out of my way before I fall over, and I'll focus the dress form on this. Having a portfolio of all of your samples is it's just absolutely invaluable over time. So this is my Simple Something. I made it cropped. So I knit to the length of the pattern. But as you can see, I'm not sure how I can get the camera to focus on it and not me. I think I have to remove my face. So let me see if that works. Yeah, there we go. So I had to modify the pattern a little bit. So it's knit to the length that is called for in the pattern, but it is quite a bit tighter, and the sleeves are shorter. So because I only had 3 skeins of yarn, and because I was holding the yarn double, it basically halved the amount of yarn that I had. So if I were to do this again, I think I would either spin a 4th skein of something, or so that I had more yardage to play with, or I would choose or I would just make it like this again, like do it cropped, do it a bit tighter. So I increased in the raglan. I kind of ignored the stitch counts. Like once I kind of was getting comfortable with how the color fading was gonna work up, I stopped referencing the pattern in terms of like stitch counts, and I ended up kind of working just from the fit, and I just kept putting it on my dress form, and I actually just realized I didn't actually put it on my dress form properly. That's a bit better. It wasn't on properly. It wasn't on all the way. And so this has 0 ease. It is roughly 30 a 32-inch bust roughly. I did increase the length here after I went back and finished the sleeves, and I'll talk about the sleeves in just a minute. I actually did add a little bit more length in here. I added about 1.5 inches, and then I redid the bottom hem ribbing, because remember I wanted to change the cast off anyways. So I ended up doing a sewn cast off, and I'll take this off my dress form in a minute and I'll show that to you in the webcam, because the detail of it is really quite beautiful. And then for the sleeves, what I did was I put them both on cables. And what I ended up doing was, I'm actually going to show you. Just give me one sec. So I know this is really super nerdy, but that's why you're here, because we like to nerd out about all this stuff. Oh, shoot. I ripped it out and I put it in something. Darn. What I did basically was, when I started on my sleeves, let me just move back to be out of the shot. So I had both sleeves put on cables, same size needles. And I started and I basically made a list. So I was like 2G, and then I put a line next to it for one round. And then if I did a second round, I put a second line. And then so then that would be 2 rounds. And then when I added the targhee and it was 1 strand of targhee, 1 strand of Gotland, I did, G/T, and then I put a line next to it. So 1 round, and so on. So if it was alpaca targhee, I'd put A/T, and then the number of rounds, etc., all the way down. So like in here, it was like, just the alpaca merino. So then I had A and then like 5 lines next to it. And then I did the same through the cuff. And then I was able to mimic that on the other side. So I just followed along with what I had already done. Does that make sense? Because the thing is like I needed the same number of rows, but I also needed the sleeves to match. And she talks about it in the pattern about why you want the sleeves to match and why you want them to look the same. Because through the body of the sweater, I ended up with sort of this darker chest here, which thank you, Eve, because you said that you liked that. And that's what the sweater itself looks like her sample. And then you sort of lighten it up as you go, but the sleeves are supposed to go darker. But instead, I kind of mimicked what I had done in the body of the sweater. And then I did 15 rows on the hem and the cuffs of ribbing, 1 by 1 ribbing, and then bound off. So really detail oriented. I'm going to grab the list and then you guys can see it, because I think the note taking is really important. The reason why I don't have it in my notebook that I actually wrote it in, and why I ripped the page out, is because I actually also used the other side. I was in a meeting earlier that day and I had made some notes, and then I put those notes in my journal. So this is what I'm welcome to my diary. So that's what I mean. So you see how I did, and then the tick boxes are the second sleeve. So this is all of the second sleeve. And then these are all of the rows. Does that make sense? So, 1 strand targhee, 1 strand alpaca for 1 row, and then targhee/Gotland for 2 rows, and then 2 targhee for 3 rows, and so on all the way down. I know it's like, it seems really detail oriented and it seems like really intense to do that. But the thing is that's how I ended up with matching sleeves. So I think when it comes to some of that finishing work, it takes longer and it takes a lot of like thoughtful consideration of like, okay, how am I going to keep track of this? Because the thing is I was working from one yarn cake. So it wasn't like I could, go back and forth and knit 2 sleeves unless I recaked the yarn and had 6 cakes, 3 for each sleeve. And the thing is like, then you've just got so many balls of yarn hanging off your sleeve, and you're constantly cutting them anyways, because there is a reason why you're constantly cutting them. So let me move this stuff out of the way, and let's turn this baby inside out. Because again, remember, this sweater is reversible. We're not going to get a chance to talk about anything else today. We're going to only talk about my sweater. You can't, if this sweater is reversible, you can't carry the yarn up on the inside of the sleeve, because then the sweater isn't reversible, because you've got these yarns being carried up. So you have to constantly be cutting them. So from that perspective, it just doesn't work. So I'm not going to put it on the dress form because I want to show you my Felix cardigan. But this is what the other side looks like. I'll just hold it up to the camera. It's easier. So really, really pretty. I don't know which side I like better. Like in her samples, she has it modeled as this side. And I'll show you the modeled photos. So let me switch over my camera. Oh, that's not it. Nope. Where did it go? I know it's here. There it is. So this is it on me. So I'm going to move cameras around while you guys look at the photos. Or not, I'm going to put my Felix cardigan on. Yeah, there's just nothing like reverse stockinette, hey? Like, the method I used to weave in the ends, honestly, Shelly, it wasn't really that good, in the sense of like, there was no rhyme or reason. Like I didn't use a special way or anything. I just used, one of my really fine tapestry needles. So a smaller one that I normally would. And I tried to weave in between the stitches, and I only went a couple of stitches each way with the 2 ends. It's very fiddly. It took a long time. I'm not sure how else I could have done it with it being so invisible. And after I was finished, I actually had, and washed it and blocked it and everything, I actually had to go back and trim some of the ends. Like after it was dry, there was ends sticking out all over the sweater. The one saving grace I think that I'll have kind of in my pocket, if you will, is the fact that the Gotland is super sticky. And so over time, with where it'll kind of rub together and it'll hold. And the alpaca merino silk was not super washed. So the merino will help to kind of sticky up, and that'll secure the ends. So yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for your kind words. I love this outfit. So this is my oversized H&M cardigan that I bought in Toronto in 2005. It's one of those sweaters that I've had for absolutely forever, and I wear it all the time, and it still looks brand new. It's right here, and I had seen it in the store, and I waffled about it because it was just when these oversized long cardigans were just coming into style, and I wasn't really sure that it looked that good on me, and I was kind of waffling about buying it and blah, 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 and I've had it for 15 years. Like I bought it in 2005, and I saw it a couple of times at different H&Ms. It was when Toronto was the only place in Canada that had H&M yet, and it was at Eaton Centre, and I saw it and I tried it on. I really liked it, but I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm really gonna wear it. Anyways, I thought this particular outfit worked really well, so I can definitely see that becoming one of my capsule wardrobe modules. So I just wanted to put on some an extension on this so that I can really show you the Felix cardigan. So this is the Felix cardigan by Amy Christophers, or Christophers. I'm not really sure how you say her last name. This is West Coast Color, so Lynn Anderson's fiber, westcoastcolor.ca, I think, westcoastcoloringcarding.com. And what I have done with this, as you guys know, I have knit this several times and ripped it out every single time. So this is an oversized cardigan, and it is okay, I'll move again. Just give me a sec to sort of adjust this. This is an oversized cardigan, and it's meant to be really, really super loose and sort of drapey, and it's sort of meant to be, worn, not tight. It's and it's cropped, and like, it's just a really, really cute pattern. Anyhow, I've made it a couple of times, and every single time I was really unhappy with it, and I ripped it out. And so what I did this time round was I actually cast on 5 fewer stitches across the back. And that seems to have really fixed my issues with it in terms of like just it bagging out at the back. I also worked an extra set of short rows at the back neck to lift it up just a little bit. And then I'm actually 1 by 1 striping the hand spun. So I have 3 balls of hand spun yarn being worked at the same time. And the reason is because the yarn is actually not that evenly spun. So you can see that this top ball is actually thicker than the other 2. And so what that's doing is creating sort of a very gently thick and thin yarn through the body of the cardigan, and sort of minimizing some of the overt striping that would otherwise have been really, really, really super noticeable, like this dark blue that runs across here. So I think once the button band is on at the front, there we go. Once the button band is on at the front and it gets washed, this is all tangled. There we go. And then I'm going to wash it in really hot water. And see if I can get some of the color to bleed a little tiny bit, just to see if I can do that. I doubt it'll work because Lynn dyes really beautifully. But anyways, so I think it just, it's interesting. It's quite lovely. I've got quite a few things I can wear it with. This t-shirt that I'm wearing today included. And it'll relax a little bit more when I finish it, because this has a lot of drape. It's very open. The stitches are very open. The pattern calls for 6mm needles, and I'm knitting on 5mm needles, and I got a similar enough gauge. I wasn't too concerned. It's top down raglan. You can separate for the sleeves anytime. When it fits, and then you can just continue on knitting. So that's the Felix cardigan. I'm really enjoying it. I don't know. I have these 3 balls plus this one. So I'm going to finish the body, and then what I'm going to do for the sleeves is similar to what I did with my Simple Something. I'll knit them sort of, I'll probably knit one to a certain point, knit the other one to a certain point, go back and knit the other one the rest of the way, and then knit the other one the rest of the way, so I can maximize and use up as much yarn as I possibly can. And if it means making the sleeves a little bit shorter, like I did with the Simple Something, then I'll do that. So really pretty colors. I really love how I really like how this is knitting up. I'm very, very, very happy with it. So that is that. Oops, wrong way. Yeah, hello again. So, okay. Let's talk about a spin that I'm working on right now, and I'll just move the cameras again. I feel like we're moving cameras around a lot today. So thank you for your patience. we go. Okay, so this is my Falkland spin. I was showing the girls in spin group this spin this morning, and I told them I would show them properly. This is the fiber. This is Lynn's fiber, so West Coast color again. And you guys who know me, I mean, look at what I'm wearing today. These are totally my colors. And here's the bobbin. So my first bobbin is almost done. I tried to get these last little bumps done in spin group this morning, but we were chatting too much. Surprise, surprise. And I didn't get them quite done. So I will. Oh no. I will be working on these this afternoon and just get them done, and then this will be the second bobbin. So I had 2 braids of this, and the first one is spun to the bobbin, and then this will be the second bobbin. And I'm just spinning my default yarn. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just spinning on autopilot. It's been really relaxing and really lovely. It's been exactly what I need with everything going on at the hospital right now. And yeah, it's 100% Falkland and West Coast color. And actually I have 2 more braids. One is a blue and the other one is like a pink with some purples and blues. And my original plan was to do something with all of it and put it all together in one project. And then in the end, I'm not sure I will do that. But the option is there and the colors are similar. There, that's better. I don't like it when I'm cropped off. So let's talk about my sweater spins. So this is the Frisian and my Gotland. So there are people in this community who will absolutely cringe with what I'm going to say next, but this is self-preservation at this point. And I just had to really ask myself what my time is worth and what my making is worth. So this is my Gotland Romney spin, and I am making the, this is my make 9 again. So this is in the very, very, very center next to the Simple Something and below the Felix cardigan. So the Felix cardigan is that purple one in the top middle. And in the very middle there is Gentle Morning by Trin Annalee. And I think that's how you say her name. And it's just this absolutely beautiful top down, again, raglan style, semi sort of DK weight. It's knit in a long wool. It's sort of semi-fitted, but has lots of nice positive ease that just looks comfortable. And she knit it in Blacker Yarns Tamar, which is a long wool. It's a blend of Wensleydale and Teeswater and all that kind of stuff. So when I saw that cardigan, I was like, that is what I want to do with my Gotland Romney fleece. Like I just immediately was like, yes, that is the sweater for me. Because I had been on the fence about the other one that I had chosen because I was going to do the no frills, but I was really concerned about how the shoulders sat, and I was concerned about wear and whether or not I was actually going to really use it. And then I stumbled on that cardigan and I was like, yes, that is the one. So as you know, I've been combing this fleece and it hasn't been getting done. And I wasn't really super happy with the yarns that I was making. They were nice and soft and they were lovely, but it just wasn't getting done. And then once I was getting them, spun up and plied and whatnot, the yarns that I was making, I mean, they're absolutely beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But I wasn't really happy with my knitted swatches. So these are the 2 yarns that I had made from my combed prep. And then these were the swatches that I was making. And I mean, they're lovely swatches, don't get me wrong, but they're not really quite thick enough. So I was going to have to thicken up my knitting. And because of the wiry nature of the Gotland Romney, of course, you can see, we were just talking about this, the stitches don't fill in those empty places, right? So you've got to knit somewhat tightly, like in the sense of like a smaller yarn gauge if you want like a really sort of dense fabric. And this is just really beautiful fabric. But the staple on the Gotland Romney fleece wasn't so long that I couldn't not put it on the carder. And I have a fine TPI carder. The carding cloth on my drum carder is fine. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to card up a little bat and just see. And I'll sample it and see what I end up with. Well, I started sampling. And I started spinning, and I went back to the carder and I made another bat to do a second single. And then I went back to the carder and did a third bat to do a third single. And I ended up with 150 yards of yarn. And this is the yarn for me. This is how the rest of this fleece will be spun. The bat came off as a smooth bat. So what I did was I put the tips on all going in the same direction. And I just did it really nice and slow so that I would have this really, really lovely uptake. Very smooth on the big drum, and I drafted it off as I took it off, and just very, very gently to make like a really smooth bat. And then I divided it up and made little nests, and then I spun end to end with each nest. And honestly, this yarn is just perfect. So I did up a little swatch to see if I had gauge for the pattern, which I do. And I'm going to do the rest of the yarn using this technique. I've already made a few more bats with James. He's been helping me, and the yarn still has this lovely, it's still got this lovely halo. It's still got the sheen of the Gotland and the Romney. To the untrained eye, you would never know that these were not the same. Although this is slightly thicker spun because I needed a slightly thicker yarn, which the slightly airier prep helped with to create that without creating a lot of density and a lot of heaviness. And so once this is all spun, I'll dye it up and then I'll knit away. So I'm really happy with this, and I'm glad that I kept experimenting, because while these yarns are absolutely beautiful and they would be amazing for a shawl or a cowl, something light and airy, I just wasn't getting the prep done. So, yeah, it's so true, Diane. I think part of it too is like I just needed to get it like a prep going that was going to work, that I could just get this prepped. Like, I have these 9 fleeces. I would like to get them done and get them prepped and get them spun. And I'm not going to be able to do that if I just can't get them done, right? And there isn't so much of this Gotland Romney that I can't not get it all carded up, because James has been really, really super helpful. And I can just get it prepped, get it ready to go, and just really enjoy the spinning process. Because once I get going with the spinning, like this spun up really fast. Like we're talking like a couple of hours of spinning and plying this 3-ply. The one thing I will say about this 3-ply is because it was carded and it's nice and light and airy, I think I plied it a little bit too tightly. And I needed to sort of back off on the twist angle a little bit. Like the twist angle is sort of like 35. And I think I would have preferred it to be more of like a twist angle of 30. I'm not sure you guys are going to be able to see that, but the twist angle is a little bit too high. Because even like, plied, it's still twisty and curlicue, and I just needed to back off on the ply twist just a little bit. So I might send this back through the wheel just to lighten it a little bit from a ply twist perspective when I go to ply the other yarns, when I finish spinning up all the singles. Oh, good night. Good night, Marlios. Yeah, the stream kind of went a little bit late today because of starting a little bit late. And we've been chatting for quite a while. So it's just an hour now. All right, so the next project that I have that I want to share with you is my Frisian. So this is that downy prep that I was telling you guys about that James has been helping me with. And it's just this gorgeous down fiber. I will share some photos next show because I left both of these fleeces downstairs. And there will be photos of these fleeces in the yarn substitution content as well. So you guys will see what they look like to begin with. So this is actually a 2-ply. and again carded, but left sort of semi-woolen. So when I was spinning short backward, I didn't do long draw because I wanted a really consistent yarn. And sometimes my my woolen spinning is a little bit too inconsistent because I don't do it often enough, and I prefer the yarns that I get that are spun short backward, either smoothing or no smoothing. So this was spun 2-ply 18 wraps per inch for the singles, and I finished it. It's super dark. Obviously, it's like black. This really gorgeous dark brown. I just love it. And then I applied it to 11 wraps per inch, and then it knit up just absolutely beautifully. So at the bottom down here is knit on 5mm needles, and you can see that there's a little bit more air down here, and then 4.5mm needles, and then 4mm at the top. So it'll be knit on 4mm needles in the end. And I'm actually going, on my Make 9, I had put the Trailhead cardigan by Veronique Avery, but I'm actually going to pivot a little bit, and I'm going to make the Shore cardigan instead. So I will link that in the show notes. I see your question there, Diana. I will answer it in a minute. So the Shore cardigan by Carrie Bosstick Hogue, Bosstick Hogue. I have the book. I think it's called Swoon. I had bought it to do the vest, and so, which I ripped out, which you guys know. So I'm going to do this instead. The reason is because this is so dark, and I love this yarn as a 2-ply. And the Trailhead has a cable pattern down the back, and it's seamed, and there's a lot of structure to it. It's just not going to suit this yarn. And so the reason why I chose that cardigan for my Make 9 was because of the shape. So this is going to be the Shore. So I'm just going to pivot that one item out of my Make 9 and substitute this in instead. So I think the Trailhead is in the upper corner there, the dark brown cardigan, and I'm just going to put in the Shore cardigan instead, which I've linked in the live chat that you guys should have on replay down below when you watch this later. So you'll be able to see those links that I've posted throughout the show in there. So that is the I'll hold this up a bit closer so you guys can see. It's just beautiful. So yeah, I'm just loving this. All I want to do is work on this yarn. I only want to work on this right now. It's just like my favorite project that I'm doing. So James has been very helpful, and we've been carding up a storm. I've got 6 bats so far ready to spin, and once we finish carding up sort of the number of, however many we end up doing, I'm gonna sort of set, I'm just gonna spin probably 2 or 3 to one bobbin, 2 or 3 to the other bobbin of the bats, and then ply them and just keep going until I have the right amount of yardage. And then the remaining bats, I'll decide what I'm going to do with them down the road. A couple of them will be giveaways, because the yardage that I need for this is actually about 50 grams. I need about 120 yards. I need about 1,200 yards of yarn. And this is knit on 4mm needles. So I think that'll be about right. And I think I got gauge up here in the 4mm range. I think that, the needle sizes are to knit the body of the cardigan on 4.5mm needles. But I got gauge on 4mm needles. So that was perfect. So, I need about 1,500 yards of yarn, and I'll cast that on. To answer your question, Diane, for the Gotland Romney, that's actually why I want to back off on the twist angle, is because this is biased. So even though this is washed and blocked, I washed it on Friday, you can see that there is bias to it. And actually, this one biased as well, which I wasn't too concerned about, because this one I wasn't going to use anyways, this sample, but this biased as well. So there's too much ply twist in both of these. Whereas the one that I plied and spun the other way, so this was S plied, hang on, Z plied, S plied. So these two are S plied, so counterclockwise, and this one is plied clockwise, and the singles are spun anti-clockwise. So S spun singles, Z spun ply. This one didn't bias, which is really interesting. So that's why I need to back off on the ply twist for this one. And that will also make it a little bit less wiry. So that was one of the things that I was going to work on. Yeah. Oh, don't worry, Charlotte. There's already a video. Don't you worry. I definitely have a video to share with you guys. Yes, I definitely have a video to show you. And actually, I'm not sure. Maybe I can even, so I'm going to put this together. I'm going to put this together like there's actually like actual video. But if you guys want to see a video, sort of a silly one, you guys can click on that. So it's just silly. So yeah, so we'll have to back off on the ply twist with these two a little bit. This one I'm not going to be doing anyways. It's this one that I just, like I said, that I have to come back on the twist a little bit. It's just a little bit overspun, a little bit too dense. Because it's over plied. And that actually is because I was plying on my Lendrum, and I had it at 17:1 on my ratio, and I meant to pop it up to 12:1, and I forgot. And I just plied. So yeah. Okay. I think that is everything. Let's see. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about so much today. We've had a very full show, and I didn't even include any sharing of community participation stuff because it's been so, I knew I had all these projects to share with you and to talk about. So this white fleece, the Gotland Romney, is actually part of the yarn substitution content, and that will be the one that comes out in July. So that one is for that one. And this one is for June. So I think it's June. Yeah. So these are going to be projects that are I'm very actively working on over the next couple months. I also have some progress on my Arctic berries on my Ashford E spinner, and I thought what I would do, because of this really strange sort of times that we find ourselves in with COVID and all of the isolating and everything. I've been working on my stuff, but I've got everything downstairs, and we've kind of moved my office and Mike's office upstairs. And so my e-spinner is downstairs on my cart, which is very difficult to carry up and down the stairs. So what I actually thought that I would do, if you guys are interested, if you could let me know, is I actually think that I'm going to do some video of spinning on the e-spinner and put it in the podcast so that you guys can see some of the stuff that I've been working on, how I spin multiple singles to one bobbin, all that kind of stuff, and sort of including it as like a, kind of like we do when we throw up an image, but it would be a video, and including some of that teaching here so that you guys can pick my brain and ask lots of questions. So if that would be helpful, please let me know. I know there's a lot of people in our community who do spin on e-spinners, and that is stuff that you guys are really interested in. So please let me know about that. That would be really helpful. The other thing too that I am sampling and trying to figure out is what to do with this Falkland yarn, because I absolutely love that stockinette, and I talked about that last show. So I have all of my samples sitting here, and all of my knit swatches and stuff, and I've been trying to figure out, do I make something off of my Make 9? There was a pattern that I had initially thought that I would make with that yarn that was the Bailey's Irish Cream by Thea Coleman. That was what I spun the yarn for. But then I kind of got distracted by the Albini cardigan, and I don't really have enough yardage for it unless I shorten the sleeves. That's this one here. I'll link it in the show notes. Or sorry, in the live chat. And then I also got distracted by this cardigan. Where did it go? The Ramona by Elizabeth Smith. So we shall see. I want to knit and make all the things. The Ramona is knit in bulky, not bulky, Aran weight yarn. So I'd have to do some modifications with stitch counts, but like that would be so easy. So we could talk about that in the show as well. So that's this 100% Falkland that I spun from my friend Lynn, again, of West Coast Color. So lots of things for me to think about right now. I'm just kind of working my way through all of these thoughts. And I appreciate you guys, being here and doing that with me, and, your own reflections and thoughts on your projects. I really appreciate that. It's really fun to be able to work through this stuff and to do it together. And to sort of have that opportunity. We will have another maker morning this weekend. We've been hosting them every week on the weekends for about an hour. You guys have an opportunity to come, and I sit here and make. This past weekend, I was working on my Arctic berries on my e-spinner. I had it set up right here, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. We will be doing the maker morning on Saturday this weekend because I am working on Sunday. So if you guys would like to participate in that, if you're a patron of the show, and you're not a patron of the show and you would like to come and participate in the live chat and be a part of the maker morning, it's very relaxed, very chill. You can pledge for just a couple of dollars and be able to watch that and participate in the live stream on Saturday morning. So if you're watch this on Friday night when the show is first released, it'll be happening in the morning. So on Saturday morning at some point, I suspect it'll be 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, but I will post. I will create the post and put that up on Friday at some point, so you guys can put that on your calendar. There are links in the show notes for the newsletter, for the How I Spin sock ebook, and I think that's it for this week. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your thoughts and your kindness and your kind words. Please wash your hands. Do your part. Don't gather socially right now in groups. Please gather online instead and in a virtual context. And please keep frontline workers, health workers, nurses, doctors, housekeepers, everybody who's sort of in the front lines dealing with the pandemic. Those of us who are in it really appreciate your thoughts and prayers, and please do your part while we do ours. It was very cool last night, I have to say. At 7 p.m. Fire, ambulance, and police surrounded the hospital. So for those who are new to the show and have not watched the show before and don't know much about me, I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I work in intensive care. And as you can imagine, we are currently chock-a-block with COVID positive patients. Anyways, fire, ambulance, and police surrounded the hospital and lit up the skies with lights, sirens, spotlights, for a full 2 minutes to serenade the nurses and the doctors and all of the frontline workers, the allied healthcare professionals, the housekeepers who are working on the front lines. And it was pretty emotional. And then when I got home, my cul-de-sac, who are the mums of the three families, or three of my best friends in the world, they were all at the end of their driveways with signs saying that they love me and that they're thinking about me, and they all started clapping and cheering when I drove into the driveway. And just those little things, those little acknowledgements for those people who are in those situations, who are serving the public and helping to look after people, it goes a really long way. And it's not necessarily bravery or courage or anything like that. This is what I was trained for. This is what I know. It's an opportunity for me and my colleagues to shine in this moment. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who sent along their well wishes, because you guys, I know that it's appreciated. Those of us who are in the front lines know that you guys know and that you are there. And I just want to say thank you. So until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy dreaming. And I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.